Hello everyone, it's Knight, back once again with another video. What I originally wanted to do for this season finale was to do a winners tournament where we have all the winners of all the previous Dark Souls tournaments fight each other in one last tournament that I wanted to call the Ultimate Soul Tournament. But unfortunately, we just weren't able to get enough winners to participate in this tournament. Some players, they couldn't play for personal reasons like school. Others just got, bored of the game because they got bored of the meta. Some just wanted to wait till the DLC. So, basically we just couldn't get the players we needed to do an 8-man winners tournament like I wanted. And that's a shame because, last season I had to cancel the winners tournament for the Bloodborne season because Dark Souls came out and everyone was ready to move on from Bloodborne, so we just didn't have enough willing participants to participate in that winners tournament, so that season finale had to be canceled. And this time I didn't want to leave you guys hanging because I didn't want to have to cancel another season finale and just, leave things as they are, just leave everything just, unfulfilled, like leave people unsatisfied. I wanted to give you guys a proper conclusion to this season. So what I've decided to do is make a top 10 of the best tournament matches of 2016. That's covering the Bloodborne season and the Dark Souls season. I wanted to do a retrospective and just look back on how far we've come and look at all the best matches that we've had this year and see why 2016 was not only such a great year for my channel, but just a great year for the community as a whole. So, without further ado, let's jump into number 10.
Attack-u! Supeku! Yeah, let's not get that again. Let's see how it plays out.
Oh, Tefix is playing. Wow! Charge attack for the win!
Woo!
And Tefix wins round 3!
Rifle Spear still OP!
Rifle Spear for the win! Coming in at number 10, we have the 4th match of the 7th Bloodborne tournament. Tefix versus Flukas. And now the reason why I love this fight so much was just because of how even it was, how evenly matched the players were, and how it went into 5 rounds. And also because of the weapons that we got to see in this fight. Flukas, he was using the one-handed Whirligig Saw and the one-handed Bloodletter. And those movesets, you don't really get to see that often in PvP, especially the one-handed Bloodletter. And Tefix, he was using the Rifle Spear, and that weapon is very rare in PvP just because of how low tier it is. The moveset just isn't that great, but Tefix, he managed to make it work, and he played pretty well in this fight with the Rifle Spear. He didn't win, but he put up a pretty good fight. There were some moments where he was really just reading his opponent right, and he was spacing out his attacks very well, getting in some good pokes, good running attacks, and he landed a really amazing charge attack in the 3rd round. In the 2nd round, he landed a parry right at the start of the round after getting his butt kicked by Flukas in the 1st round. And now Flukas, he was also reading his opponent very well. He was pretty good on his reads and his spacing in the 4th and 5th round. He was using the Gatling gun on a Blood Tinge build, which is surprising because normally when you see the Gatling gun be used in Bloodborne PvP, it's either a strength build or a quality build that's using it. You don't really get to see a full-fledged blood tinge build use the Gatling gun, and you get to see the full damage of the Gatling gun in action because the Gatling gun scales with blood tinge. So it was nice to see that, and we got to see some cool rope firebomb play from Flukas. Usually you don't really see that item be used that often because it's low damage and it's kind of a niche thing, but it was just really fun and cool to see Flukas actually land a rope firebomb hit in the middle of a tournament match. It was really amazing to see. And in the end, in the beginning he was struggling a bit, but he managed to come back strong in the end by just punishing Tefix's mischarge attacks. So, pretty even fight overall, good show from both players, pretty even match. Really good gameplay of some obscure movesets. And that's number 10. Now let's move on to number 9. Alright, all he needs is like one throwing knife now, or a rope firebomb. Hell, he could just pull out a heavy weapon and just go for a trade. Oh no, never mind. He doesn't have the health to go for a trade. Yes! Wow. And Kaiser wins round 4. GG. Coming in at number 9, we have the final match of the 4th Dark Souls tournament. Kaiser HD versus Chanik 7. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of these meta fights because the players in these meta fights are being too defensive and reactive with each other, and they draw out the fights and it becomes boring. But not these two guys. For the most part, they were being very aggressive with each other. They were on their toes. Kaiser, he was playing with the Uchi Katana and the Dragon Slayer Spear in the first 2 rounds, and he was doing pretty well, but he was still having some trouble against Chanik's Karthus. So in the 3rd round, he switched full meta. He brought out the Karthus and the Washing Pole, and at that point, you know, the players became completely even with each other. They were completely on each other's level, and it wasn't about the weapon versus weapon anymore. It was about the player's wits versus the other player's wits. It was about just reading and good spacing, and you really got to see that come into play with the Chanik versus Kaiser fight. Chanik, he was doing a good job punishing Kaiser's buffs with the running attacks and the fire bombs. Kaiser, he did a pretty good job just staying back far enough to barely dodge Chanik's hit so he can counter with counter R1s. Chanik, he ended up doing the same in the final fight, and he ended up taking home the tournament trophy. You know, this was a very, very even and very, very close fight overall that could have went either way, and to me, this is the most entertaining meta fight of the entire season, because again, in these meta fights, all you see is just over defensive and overreactive play, and I'm glad that in this fight we got to see the reading and the spacing really shine, because that's what these fights are supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about the weapon versus weapon, because the reason why most matches is about the weapon versus weapon is because of the imbalance, because one weapon is top tier and the other is low tier. But in a fight where both players are using weapons that are on the same tier, it's no longer about the weapon versus weapon, but it's about, you know, just reading and spacing, and that's what these fights are supposed to be, and that's what made this meta fight very entertaining to watch. So that's number 9. Let's move on to number 8.
That's the second time he missed a parry. He needs those parries if he wants to win the tournament.
Yep. Got to be dedicated to those moves.
Oh, he's being playing risky. Oh! It was a risky move, but it paid off. Good Tribe won round 4. Who's going to win the next round and take home the cup?
Coming in at number 8, we have the final match of the 2nd Bloodborne tournament. Edan 960 versus Good Tribe. And this fight really showed that you don't always need to rely on a meta weapon to beat another meta weapon. In the first round, Edan was completely overwhelming Good Tribe with aggression. And Good Tribe, he tried switching to the same weapon that Edan was using. You know, he was doing a mirror match, Rakuyo versus Rakuyo, and he still ended up losing because Edan, he was more experienced with that meta weapon. So what Good Tribe did was just drop the meta weapons completely and bring out one of the classics, the Burial Blade. Now the Burial Blade, it wasn't one of the top cream of the crop weapons in vanilla Bloodborne PvP, but it was still pretty up there, and he made an amazing comeback with that weapon. His spacing and reads were on point. He made a really amazing charge attack hit in the 4th round, and he ended up winning that round because of it. And it was very risky because that charge attack, it takes very long to charge, and Edan was being aggressive. He was coming right in to stop him, but thanks to his amazing spacing and good read, the Good Tribe was able to land that charge attack and win that 4th round. And there were some moments where he made some parries, and due to his over defensiveness, he wasn't able to land a riposte. But that didn't stop him from winning, and because he relied on his guts and the weapon that he's more comfortable with, instead of relying on the meta weapons to beat another meta weapon player, he ended up winning the fight and just putting on a really good show. Now Now, to give Dan some credit, you know, like I said before, he was being very aggressive in the first round, and that really helped him win those first 2 rounds. He just went right in and completely demolished Good Tribe, because the Good Tribe, he was just being very indecisive at the time. He just didn't know what to do. And it was really fun to see Dan use those arcane tools, like he was using the Beast Roar to deflect bullets. He was using the Old Hunter's Bone to move fast and dodge attacks very quickly, and that's really what you need against the Beast Hunter Safe and Rakuyo and even the Burial Blade, because those weapons are very fast, and Old Hunter's Bone is very useful for dodging the quickest attacks in the game. So pretty good fight overall, really close match. That's number 8. Let's move on to number 7. We have a 1v1 now. Can Team Nephilim make a comeback? Tortilla the Bun still has half his health left. Oh, it's not 50. Oh, parry! Yes! Can he die? Oh my god! Oh my god! Woo! Coming in at number 7, we have the second match of the first Dark Souls 2v2 tournament. Team Reapers of Grimm, Chanix and Tortilla versus Team Nephilim, Death Slicers and Grimm. And this fight really showed that you can never trust your expectations, because I was fully expecting Team Reapers of Grimm to win because they were made up of 2 tournament winners. Tortilla, he won Tournament 5. Chanix, he won Tournament 4. And I thought, you know, they're tournament winners. They've proven themselves. They can win. They can beat these other guys. But I was proven wrong. Chanix and Tortilla, they won the first round. Because Chanix was fighting Grimm and Death Slicer was fighting Tortilla, and that proved to be the bad matchup. Things completely changed when they switched targets. When it became Death Slicer versus Chanix and Tortilla versus Grimm, they did a way better job holding their own against them. In the second round, Grimm, he ended up dying, and it became a 2v1. Death Slicer versus Chanix and Tortilla, and normally in these situations, there's just no hope for the one guy. But Death Slicer, he completely proved me wrong. He pulled off a parry against Chanix, and then he pulled off a parry against Tortilla, you know, winning that round and really saving his team, and it was amazing. You guys heard my reaction. I was losing my shit. You know, I couldn't believe it. Later on in the fight, we got to see some really good teamwork from Team Reapers of Grimm. Tortilla, he ended up really low on health, and it looked like Death Slicer and Grimm, they were going to do a surprise attack on him to finish him off, but Chanix, he was able to warn Tortilla in time, and he ended up saving Tortilla from being killed, and they were able to take out one of the players on Team Nephilim, and they were able to win that round, because had Tortilla have died in that round, Team Reapers of Grimm, they would have suffered an early loss, and the fight wouldn't have gone into the full 5 rounds. And you know, that's another thing. This was a very, very even fight, and it went the whole 5 rounds. And this entire Dark Souls tournament season, you didn't really get to see a lot of matches go the full 5 rounds. So I was very happy to see this match go the full 5 rounds, because it was a very good match, and it was a very good matchup overall, with, you know, with Grimm and Tortilla being very close to each other's level, and Death Slicers and Chanix being very close to each other's level. It's just a very even fight. Now in this final round, Team Nephilim did a very good job throwing off their opponents by constantly switching targets. You know, they went back to Grimm versus Chanix and Death Slicer versus Tortilla, and that was a good idea, because at that point Chanix and Tortilla got used to the matchup that Team Nephilim has set up for them, and so by constantly switching targets, they just weren't able to adapt, and thanks to that and Nephilim's over aggressiveness, they were able to win that fight and beat the team of tournament winners. So, really good fight. That's number 7. Let's move on to number 6.
Yep.
This is a complete 180 to how he was playing before.
Yep, I think he's reading his opponent. He knows what he's doing, because Driscoll has just kind of been doing the same thing.
Yikes, he just took a hit from that bone mount last shot.
Wow, survived it. Look at that.
Ninja wins round 4. We are going into round 5 now.
Go Ninja, go Ninja.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go!
Coming in at number 6, we have the final match of the 5th Bloodborne Tournament. Tit Ninja versus Driscoll. Now in this fight, we got to see a quality build take on a meta Bloodtinge build. In the first 2 rounds, Driscoll was completely outplaying Ninja by just using gunshots only, and Ninja was just not able to adapt. He was having a very hard time landing hits. Driscoll, he was just playing very reactive and countering everything Ninja was doing. In the second round, Ninja, he tried to use Lead Elixir, and that is the last thing you ever want to do against a Bloodtinge build. It completely backfired on him because all Driscoll had to do was just stand back and just keep shooting at Ninja while he's affected by the Lead Elixir, because when you have Lead Elixir on, it's like Iron Flesh. You're slow, you can barely move, and Ninja, he completely got screwed over by using Lead Elixir. It completely backfired on him. And in the third round, he really turns things around. Typically in these tournament fights, when players are losing, 2 in a row and they're on the final match, the final round, I mean, they let the pressure get to them, and they really let it affect their play style, and they end up losing, and the match turns into a wash. But Tit Ninja, he managed to stay in there. He stayed strong mentally, and he did not let the pressure get to him. And in those final rounds, in 3, 4, and 5, he really gave Driscoll a run for his money, and he gave him a hard time. Ninja, he ended up adapting against the gunshot spam. He was just spacing his attacks very well, landing some good hits on Driscoll, doing some really good dash catches, which is the Bloodborne equivalent of roll catches. And it was just a very, very extremely close match that could have went either way. Driscoll, he ended up winning in the end, but just barely. He barely edged it out. Ninja just needed one more hit to win that fight, and Driscoll won by just getting the last good read in. He was just able to space himself enough to avoid Ninja's last hit and then come in with the counter and winning the tournament. So another good, even, really close fight. One of my favorite fights of the season. That's number 6. Let's move on to number 5. Ooh, nice combo! Nice combo! Yes, he just has to keep up the magic mix-ups. Just switch between spear and stink, and put some spear strikes in there. Oh, he went for the oh! He tried to go for the backstab. He tried to go for the backstab, but he was just too late. The Dragon Slayer is moving on to the semifinals. GG. Coming in at number 5, we have the 4th match of the 5th Dark Souls tournament, Fader versus IB Dragon Slayer. And this fight showed that the least meta fights are the most entertaining. Fader, he came in with a luck build that focused on bleed, and his main weapon was the bandit's knife. He did use the Anri straight sword, but his main bread and butter was that bandit's knife. And Dragon Slayer, he came in with a faith build, which is just unheard of in a tournament setting, because faith builds, they're very underpowered due to their high stat requirements. And not only that, but it was a cosplay too. It was a cosplay of the Nameless King, using the Nameless King outfit and the Nameless King Dragon Slayer sword spear. And he even had the Nameless King's sidekick weapon, the Storm Curve Sword. And having all those things require a lot of vitality. The Nameless King's armor set is very heavy, and the Dragon Slayer sword spear is very heavy. And despite being held down by all these stat requirements, Dragon Slayer, he did a really good job fighting against Fader. Fader, he was doing exactly what you need to do when using a bleed build. He was just staying very aggressive, just spamming the R1s on the two-handed dagger moveset. He was letting the bleed in, just bleeding out Dragon Slayer. And it was a good counter pick to Dragon Slayer's build, because Dragon Slayer, a lot of his weapons are very slow, very easy to read, very easy to dodge. The lightning spells are very easy to dodge. And Fader, I thought he was gonna win, because to me he had the counter pick, But Dragon Slayer, he did a really good job countering Vader's aggression with the hyper armor of the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear and the talisman weapon art that puts poise on spells. Yeah, he did a really good job countering Vader's aggression with the lightning stake, because there are just some parts where Vader, he completely screwed himself by just staying in too close, and he ended up getting caught by the lightning stakes. In the fourth fight, he was like just dashing into Dragon Slayer, and he did one dash too many and ended up dashing into the lightning stake, and that completely screwed him over. Aside from that, Dragon Slayer, he also did a very good job comboing spells with the melee. He comboed the lightning stake into the Dragon Slayer R1. He comboed the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear R2 into an R1, you know, when he will catch Vader. And, you know, he really surprised me. You know, like I said, I thought Vader had the counter pick, but thanks to his good reads, taking advantage of the lightning stake and the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear hyper armor to counter Vader's aggression, he managed to pull through in the end and get one of the most epic final hits of any tournament fight that I've ever seen. In that final round, Dragon Slayer, he managed to hit Vader with the weapon art of the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear. Vader, he was going in to finish off Dragon Slayer with a backstab, and it looked like he was going to get it, but that lightning bolt just came in at the right time and finished off Vader before he can get in that backstab, and that ending was just really fucking epic. So, you know, great fight, great even fight from both players, Dragon Slayer and Vader. That's number 5. Let's move on to number 4. 10 seconds left. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the match. Ooh, the match is over. The match is over. All right, let's see what happened here. Which team did the most damage? So both teams lost a teammate. Knife has more health, so this round goes to the Mighty Morphin Flower Rangers. GG. Coming in at number 4 is the final match of the third 2v2 tournament. The losers, ATX Arrow and Ibarba, versus the Mighty Morphin Flower Rangers, Knife Series and Severe Bowels. And this fight was the best non-meta fight of the 2v2 tournaments. So the losers brought a strength build and a magic build, and they ended up going all the way to the finals, which is unusual for a Dark Souls tournament because those kinds of builds are considered low tier, you know, not that viable. But that's what is great about 2v2s. In a 2v2 setting, the more obscure builds are more viable because of teamwork and being able to do switch ups. And it was just great to see a strength build and a magic build make it all the way to the end. Now, aside from that, both teams were on point with their teamwork. They were doing callouts, they were shifting targets. The first round ended in a timeout because both teams stayed alive towards the final 10 seconds of the fight. Severe Bowels ended up dying, turning the fight into a 2v1 around the 6-second mark, and it looked like the losers were gonna win that round, but Knife Series, at the very last second, he managed to take out Ibarba, winning the round for the Mighty Morphin Flower Rangers. And then going into the later rounds, ATX, he really proved that to do well with magic, you don't always have to rely on the high tier magic. You don't have to rely on just Crystal Soul Spear and Crystal Soul Mass. He was doing really well with low tier magic like the regular Farron Dart and Great Soul Arrow. You know, he was just doing a good job just catching players off guard while they had their backs turned, swapping targets. You know, instead of shooting at the person who's closest to him, he swapped targets to the person who was further away during the middle of the casting. He was using the Farron Dart to provide support for Ibarba while he's fighting close up with an opponent. And the few times where he did use Crystal Soul Spear, he really made it count, and his use of the Crystal Soul Spear really turned the match in their favor. And Bowles and Ibarba during the entire match, they were just having an epic Halberd versus Halberd fight. The Black Knight Halberd versus the Gundar's Halberd. You know, it was really cool to see the two top-tier Halberds going up against each other in a very even fight. Another notable thing about that fight was the tag team wake-up attack that the losers had on Severe Battles during the fourth round. I believe Severe Battles, he got knocked down by the weapon art of the Gundar's Halberd, and while he's trying to get up, he's getting shot at by ATX Arrow, by his magic, his great soul arrow. And after getting hit stunned by that, after getting up, Ibarba was able to follow up with another hit, and it was just really good teamwork on the loser's part, and Knife Series was just completely unable to alert his teammate and protect Severe Bowels from not getting hit. So that was a really good fight overall. It was really great to see a magic build and a strength build make it to the finals of the tournament and win. And that's number 4. Now let's move on to number 3. Wildstyle isn't doing too hot. Edan is doing very hot. Oh, a parry! Oh shit! Oh no, Timid Bully could have hit him with the fireball. Oh no, a parry! Oh shit! Oh shit! Yo! Oh my god! What's gonna happen? Oh my god, if only you guys can hear the teams communicating. They are losing their shits right now. Everyone's yelling. Oh my god, the cheese. Garrett's comeback. Oh, the throwing bombs. Oh no! Oh no! Coming in at number 3 is the 4th match of the first 2v2 tournament. Team Lothric versus Team Darksword Dragon Gods. Edan and Garrett versus Timid Bully and Wildstyle. And this has to be one of the closest 2v2 matches I've ever seen. And one of the biggest highlights of this match was just seeing how a 2v1 is supposed to be done, because there have been multiple rounds in this fight where there's been a 2v1 situation. In round 2, Timid Bully, he ended up losing his teammate Wildstyle, and he was forced to fight Edan and Garrett on his own. And although he did not win, he came pretty close. He was doing a great job just landing the pyromancies, you know, landing Fire Surge to finish off what little health Edan had. He came extremely close to finishing off Garrett. You know, he did a great job just keeping his distance and using his pyromancy properly. Almost caught Garrett. By the time the second round ended, Garrett was almost completely out of health. And in the third round, Garrett was doing great. Edan died. He pulled off a parry on Wildstyle. Timid Bully came in and started attacking him after the parry animation was done. Garrett took the first and second hit, and then he immediately pulled out a parry on Timid and completely turned the fight around. Timid survived the parry, and it seemed like Timid was able to make a comeback by just spamming Fire Surge. But Garrett, he stayed focused. He was able to avoid the Fire Surge and finish off Timid Bully and win round 3 for his team. And then in the next round, you had the 2v1 with Wildstyle versus Edan and Garrett. Timid Bully, he died pretty quickly, and Wildstyle was... He did the right thing by focusing on Edan first, because Edan was the weaker link of Team Lothric. And he went right in, stayed aggressive, broke his guard, parried him, and then after that he went immediately in after Garrett with a roll attack. He took a couple of hits, he got a little too reckless, he must have ran out of stamina, but he's able to just stay in there and just go in for the kill. Yeah, he finished off Garrett. And aside from that, Timid Bully, he did an excellent job with his pyromancies. I think there was one moment where he did hit Wildstyle with the fireball, but he did a great job, especially in the beginning, just landing those fireballs on Garrett, you know, causing him to get hit by the pool of lava, you know, throwing out sneak attacks at Edan while he wasn't looking. His pyromancy support game was completely on point. Garrett's, his parries were amazing. I think he really carried Team Lothric. And what's really surprising about how well Team Lothric did was that they weren't meant to be a team. Garrett was originally going to team up with Zarvi, and Edan was originally going to team up with Devil Alistair, but both their teammates weren't available to play. They didn't show up, so they kind of made a team at the last second, and they were able to make it work, and they almost won the fourth match, despite not being able to practice with each other and just not having that much experience with each other beforehand. Despite all that, they were still able to make it work and put on a really good fight. So, you know, that was that's number 3, a really good 2v2 match, one of the closest ones I've ever seen. Just a lot of good 2v1 gameplay. And now we move on to number 2.
Fred Alien Mall cannot afford to take another hit. He has to finish this. Oh, double knockout! Oh, who wins then?
No, that
We have to have a tiebreaker. We have to have a 6th round. This is unheard of. We have to have a 6th round.
Coming in at number 2 is the 3rd match of the 3rd Bloodborne Tournament, Breakin 28 versus Pred Alien Mall. And the biggest reason why this match is at number 2 is because it was the only match out of all the Bloodborne tournament matches and all the Dark Souls tournament matches. This was the only one to go 6 rounds. That's right. Normally the matches are best 3 out of 5, and it would normally just go up to 5 rounds. They had a double knockout at the end, and we were forced to go into a 6th round, which was just unheard of. It was just so amazing to me. And even before that, like, just every round was just so close. It seemed like every round could have been a double knockout. These two players were just so evenly matched, and to see the 5th round go into a double knockout, and then we have a 6th round afterwards, you know, that was just amazing. Aside from that, we also got to see an arcane build player fight another arcane build player. It was a battle of 2 good experienced arcane builds, and arcane builds, they were very rare to come by just because arcane builds were very underpowered before the Bloodborne DLC, and they got buffed after the DLC, but you still didn't really see them that much. So to see an experienced arcane build player fight it out with another experienced arcane build player, that was something that was just really rare and just really cool to see, because we got to see some cool spell combos with the melee. You know, one player would throw out a Cursed Brew and then follow up with a melee hit. Another player would throw out Executioner's Gloves, follow up with a melee hit. They were punishing their spells. Like, one player would throw out a Cursed Brew and the other one would punish that with the Black Sky Eye. There were a lot of really close moments where, like, Pred Alien Mall, he was just extremely low on health. He took a lot of hits in the early seconds of round 4. And thanks to the good reads and spacing, he was able to make a comeback on very low health. He pulled out some pretty good strategies, like when he got Breakin down to low health, he pulled out the Rosemarinus and just wiped out what little health he had left with the Rosemarinus. And then the 5th fight was just so extremely close. Because when Breakin, when his health was low, once again, Pred the Mall, he brought out the Rosemarinus and he tried to, you know, take out the last bit of his health. And Breakin, he was able to just keep up the his zoning pressure and just keep far away enough to not let that Rosemarinus finish him off. And then in the end of that round, both players ended up running out of ammo, so they were forced to get in close and finish each other off with a melee. And that's when the double knockout happened. And then in the final round, the last big highlight that happened was Breakin actually landing a hit with the Tiny to Nitrous, and that was just another thing that was just unheard of, landing Tiny to Nitrous in a tournament match, because that spell is so slow and so easily telegraphed. Usually you never see it hit anyone, but I think what helped Breakin was he just started the fight with that spell, and it completely caught his opponent off guard. And I think that gave him the advantage he needed, that early advantage that he needed to really win that fight. So, you know, really close fight, going into 6 rounds, epic double knockout, great arcane build gameplay. That's number 2. And now it is time for number 1.
Stay away from the cameraman, you two.
Oh man, close match using that Hunter's Bone. Oh, let it linger. Oh, he does not want him to get any hits in at all.
Oh, you know, that was a smart strategy. What Watch did was use Lead Elixir to bait road cleaners into
he got hit with the snake. Oh, I've never seen that get hit before.
We're seeing some pretty good strategies this match. Some very intelligent strategies.
Yeah, very nice. Wow.
This could go either way.
Anyone could win now.
And finally, at number 1, we have the final match of the 4th Bloodborne Tournament. Wash Up Cyclone versus Road Cleaners. And to simply put it, this fight was epic because we got to see a really good pure strength build versus a really good strength blood tinge build. Now, Wash Up Cyclone, he was playing the pure strength build, and he brought out the most weapon variety that I've ever seen from a single player in a tournament. He had like all the strength weapons: Amidala Arm, Kirk Hammer, Whirligig Saw, Hunter's Axe, the Church Cannon. And normally when you try to use that many weapons at once, it kind of hurts you because you're splitting your focus between all these weapons and you got to memorize all their movesets. But that didn't really affect him. He knew how to use all those weapons and use them effectively, even the Amidala Arm. And that's surprising because the Bloodletter is a counter pick to the Amidala Arm. It's just much faster than the Amidala Arm, has better attacks, better swinging attacks, but Wash Up, he really made that Amidala Arm shine against the Bloodletter, and it was just really amazing to see. He was also a monster with that Church Cannon in the previous rounds. Wash Up, he was just decimating people with that cannon. And normally, when players use the cannon in PvP, it's usually used as a last resort, and it wasn't like an actual part, a legitimate part of their build. But Wash Up, he owns the Church Cannon. That weapon is his baby, and he knows how to wreck house with it. And now looking at Road Cleaners, his biggest advantage was his smart use of the Lead Elixir. In the first round, he was having a very hard time against Wash Up, but he pulled out that Lead Elixir at the last second while Wash Up was winging his weapon, and he was able to turn the tides, have Wash Up's attack just bounce right off of Road Cleaners, and Road Cleaners went in for the counter and finished him in that first round. And then Wash Up, he tried to adapt to Road Cleaners' Lead Elixir use by using the cannon on him while he had Lead Elixir activated, and for round 2 and 3, that counter really worked. And in the 4th match, it really seemed like Wash Up was going to have a really easy victory in that 4th round. Road Cleaners, his health got down pretty low really quick, really early, but he actually managed to turn things around by actually landing the Martyr's Whistle spell off on Wash Up. And it was really amazing to see, because what Wash Up was trying to do, he was using Lead Elixir himself to bait Road Cleaners into running away from him so he can get a really easy shot with the Church Cannon on Road Cleaners. But Road Cleaners, he just kept running away. He forced Wash Up to come to him, and he punished Wash Up's over aggression with that Martyr's Whistle, completely turning the match's tide in his favor. Wash Up, he had almost all of his health, and he lost almost all of it thanks to that Martyr's Whistle. And Road Cleaners ended up winning that 4th round because of that really amazing Martyr's Whistle use and that really smart bait that he used. And then in the 5th fight, he had a really good early match advantage by just going straight in, being aggressive, and using that weapon art of the Bloodletter where he just stabs into the ground. He has a hyper armor on, and he's doing this high damage AoE that completely caught Wash Up off guard. But Wash Up, he stayed strong. He tried to come back. He was doing a lot of damage to Road Cleaners. It seemed like he was going to be able to make a comeback. Road Cleaners was having a hard time dodging his hits. And then once again, Road Cleaners, he brought out the Lead Elixir. But the smart thing that he did was he waited for Wash Up to use up all of his cannon shots first, because what happened before was he would use a Lead Elixir and then Wash Up would punish him by using the cannon. So he waited for Wash Up to use up his cannon shots first before using Lead Elixir. And then when he used the Lead Elixir after Wash Up used up his cannon shots, that was it. It was over, because now Wash Up had no way of punishing Road Cleaner's Lead Elixir use. And then when he tried to wait it out, he ended up attacking too soon. He hit road cleaners with his Amidala arm. The attack bounced off of road cleaners, and road cleaners was able to come in with the counterattack, finish off Wash Up, and win the final round of that tournament. And to me, that was the best fight out of all the tournament matches this year, you know, because of just the amazing tactics with the lead elixir and the Madara's whistle and the cannon, all that weapon variety for a Wash Up, all the close calls from road cleaners and Wash Up. You know, it was just a really even fight. Both players were really good on their reads and their spacing in some parts. And yeah, it was just such an epic match, such a really fun epic match with a good weapon variety, and that to me deserves the #1 spot in this countdown. So that concludes my list for the top 10 tournament matches of 2016. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my list, or were there some other matches that you believe should have been in the top 10? Let me know what you guys think, and give some constructive criticism. I don't normally do videos like this, but if this video is received well, then maybe I'll do another top 10 or something similar in the future. So that's it for the video. Before this video ends, I want to give a few thanks to a couple people. So I'll stop talking and let the credits roll. See you guys next time.